Hey everybody, this is Steve Miller, better known as Kelly's dad and marketing gunslinger. Welcome to another Uncopyable video where I am rambling about business and talking about different things that I think that are going to help you be more successful. In particular, how to separate yourself from the competition. I talk about being a speaker and an author and a consultant and stuff like that. And I know, of course, that I keep talking about my new book, Uncopyable: How to Create an Unfair Advantage Over Your Competition. Which is kind of funny because somebody in one of my videos commented, they said, "Boy, you sure push your book a lot, don't you?" Well, hello. It's how I make a living. Okay. I'm in business, just like you are. So anyway, so you know about my books. You know that I've talked about consulting, and I've told you that I'm a speaker. But other than this, you've probably never seen me as a speaker. And so I was thinking of what the topic might be this week, and I was looking back at some blurbs from some speeches that I had done over the years, and I found this one that I thought was particularly good, or I should say the topic was particularly good, that I think that you might find a lot of interest in, because it really helps us to understand why it's so hard to walk in the customer's shoes. You know, it's so hard to think like a customer, because it really is difficult, even though we have to try as hard as we possibly can. So I've got this program. It's a short segment from one of my speeches. It's only about 6 minutes and 10 seconds long, and where I talk about how we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. Watch it now. I hope you enjoy it and learn something too.
How many of you like to have your toilet paper over the top of your, okay? You know, now how many of you, prefer to have your toilet paper come underneath? Can I see you're wrong? What about toothpaste? How many of you squeeze it from the bottom, and then, squeeze it all the way up to the top, and how many of you do that? How many of you squeeze it from the bottom, squeeze it up to the top? Okay, you're right. How many of you squeeze it right from the middle? You don't care. It's just going to be, Okay, let's try something else. Okay, sock, shoe, or sock, shoe. You know what I'm talking about? In other words, is it sock, shoe, or sock, shoe? How many of you do sock, shoe? Well, that's about half. A little less than half or something like that. Who knows where that came from? Anybody know where that came from? Go ahead and say it. You are older than the rest of us here, aren't you? All in the family. That's exactly right. There's always somebody older than me in the audience. So, and they remember that. Okay, how about this? How many of you ever had, your dad was either a Chevy man or a Ford man, right? Okay, or what if you grew up in a household that really worshiped the New York Yankees? Oh, yeah. or maybe you grew up in a family where dad was a hunter. Okay, or maybe you grew up where you were Republicans, or maybe you grew up and your mom was in a sorority. Okay, all of us have these things in our lives that have had an impact on who we are today. This is what is known as heuristics. Now, I am not a scientist. I'm not a psychologist. I majored in electives, okay? So I'm not going to pretend that I know this stuff really, really well, but when I first learned about heuristics several years ago, it changed my business. And it now helps me change my clients' businesses. Heuristics. Here's the long definition of heuristics, and pardon me if I read this to you. Individuals assess probabilities based on their familiarity with a certain task, idea, or environment. Humans attempt to frame a decision based on prior situations confronted and successfully negotiated. Individuals start at one place in the decision matrix and then adjust from that point. Now, heuristics can be a very good thing. Heuristics actually helps us get through life. Imagine if you were to walk up to a door, and every single time you walked up to that door, you had to ask yourself, what the heck is that? Yeah. Now, what do I do? And what is that round? What is that, right? See, that's heuristics, is that we've already learned that. We've learned about what a door is supposed to do. And we've kind of figured that part out, okay? And so much of that impacts us in our lives. And it has a huge impact on how successful we are, both as business people, as marketers, as salespeople, both as business. I'm listing a whole bunch of things, so both and both and both. But anyway, the list goes on, as well as working with people in our offices, selling our ideas to management, or to peers, or to committees, or other people we're working with. I do not watch Wife Swap, but I know about Wife Swap. But this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. If you've ever watched Wife Swap, they take two families, they switch the wives for 2 weeks. And they go into a different family. So like, for example, you might have a family that is very straight-laced. The kids are swimmers. They're very regimented. Their schedules are set all the time. They've got to be somewhere every day, and they've got the list, the to-do list and everything like that. Or you might have a family where they don't care how they dress. They don't care where the kids hang out or any of that stuff. And then they switch those people to see how the two families will now interact. And what that is heuristics. Because the people in one family are so used to seeing the world a certain way that then when they're thrown into this completely foreign environment, it's a total, they're seeing everything from a very, very different perspective. That's heuristics. That's what that is. And heuristics can be good, as I said earlier, and it can be something very, very strong and powerful for us to use in our everyday lives. It can also be negative. Because really the bottom line, if you take that whole definition that I just read to you of what heuristics is, it boils down to a very simple thing. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And that's true of every single one of us.